Hi everyone, welcome to another Player Development Project Q&A. Really pleased to be joined by UEFA A licensed coach and PDP technical advisor Dan Wright. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, mate?
Good, great to be back on another Q&A and looking forward to this one. This week's question comes from Sean, who's over in the USA, and he sent it in via the Player Development Project Facebook page. The question is, many of the parents in my team are exceptionally vocal, often coaching the players from the sideline and contradicting the ideas that I'm working with in my group. Do you have any advice as to how I can deal with this?
Okay, I think this is something we both, have experience of, and I think it's about sort of parent education, isn't it? Parents obviously are massively invested in taking their young player to training, and they obviously want them to succeed, so they're going to have really strong views about what that looks like. So I think it's just about educating them about how you want to play football and maybe sort of breaking down some of those traditional barriers between, it's coach and player, but actually it probably should be a triangle between coach, player and parent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to look at the idea as, without sounding too commercial, but parents are stakeholders. They've got a vested interest in their children's sporting education or their schooling education. And obviously, there's some emotional attachment there for them. So I think it's about working with them. And I think a lot of the problems can stem from the fact that as coaches, it can often be that we're dealing with parents as opposed to working with parents. And I think that's the difference, is how do we work with them? So a couple of examples, from a team I coached a few years ago back in Sydney at the start of the season, put together a list of sort of key ideas that I valued in terms of what the expectations were, and then got the players to do the same. Tried to match those up, and then actually just sent that round on an email to the parents and said, look, these are the ideas the kids have come up with. These are the expectations I have in terms of the players, and this is what we're looking to achieve. And I think having that clarity really helped them, I guess, adopt the philosophy that we were trying to achieve something as a group.
Yeah.
So that was sort of one thing I've done in the past. Anything that you've done in terms of practical solutions?
Yeah, I think probably the one thing that I've learned is to not sort of try and fix this problem live. At the game is probably the wrong time to try and explain why you would like them to be quiet or how you would like them to sort of show their appreciation. I think, like you said, if you could do it pre-season in a meeting, whether that's one-to-one or it's a group meeting with all the parents, and just sort of share the vision. Like you said, they are stakeholders, they are heavily involved in this process. And also, I think they can play a massive role in supporting what you're trying to do. So rather than having that sort of secrecy between coach and player, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to try and do it, actually, they're only spending, 8% of the week with us when they're spending the rest of the time with their parents. So if you can have the parents supporting you and helping you, rather than there being a battle and perhaps the parent disregarding what we're trying to do as coaches. So maybe it's about sharing, how you're going to play football, or maybe those individual learning plans. So, if Billy is trying to work on his left foot and he's misplacing passes, then rather than perhaps the parent getting on his back and saying, that's poor or that's rubbish or whatever it is he's saying, he might understand, okay, the coach has asked him to do that, and this week it might be a bit messy. And then I think, like you said, it's just breaking down that barrier, and so that the parents understand what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. And I think once you've done that, the week-to-week or the month-to-month meetings that you have, that sort of irons out these frustrations, and then perhaps, we're all sort of pulling in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about how open you want your environment to be. So that no secrets really stood out to me in terms of what you just said. And I think you could even be brave enough to invite the parents in and say, look, this is the plan this evening, and this is why I'm trying to coach in this way, or this is the reason for the methodology, and this is the area of the game that we're working on. So whether you're working 1 or 2 nights a week in a grassroots environment, or 4 or 5 sort of sessions a week in an academy environment, I think just making sure that parents are aware why you're doing what you're doing and why you're what your methodology is going to help them understand what they're seeing, because perhaps their perception of what they're seeing is based on what they see through the media or through the adult form of the game, which, as we know, is very, very different to what young players go through when they're learning the game and having to make mistakes in order to get better. So that's something that I personally believe needs to improve in the game. And I think it, as we've spoken about previously, it's not necessarily a broad sporting problem. It could be something that's amplified more in football circles at times. And I know back in New Zealand, there's through the rugby scene and different sports, it was always a fairly tolerant and well-behaved, parental support around teams that I was involved in, either coaching or playing for. So it can be a bit more intense at times due to that adult expectation. So I think we've got to try and iron that out where we can through open communication.
Yeah, and then once the parents perhaps understand the demands on the players, that the pitch can be quite a daunting place sometimes for young players if their parents are expecting to see something they see in the Premier League, and then the coach is expecting to see something, and then they've got all the sort of the maturation problems that they might have. Sometimes you can see why players don't want to do it. So I think if the parent and the coach are speaking the same message, then that's only going to help. Something that I've done previously at another club was, when we did a video session, we invited the parents in. So to sort of share that the sort of club's philosophy, around this block of training, we're going to work on pressing, it will look like this. And so the kids would be involved, and they'd be using their laptops and then presenting back to the other guys. But the parents would just be at the back of the room, and then they get a bit more of an idea of what it is it looks like. And it is learning. It's not the Premier League, it's not La Liga, and they are going to make mistakes and they are going to get it wrong. And I think once the parents sort of understood those demands, they sort of relaxed a little bit and realised that it's part of a journey. It's not going to look the same at 10 as what it does at 25.
Absolutely. I think that communication can help reduce that anxiety. Look, in terms of content as well, we've got a little bit on the site. Highly recommend the work of Reed Maltby and Sky Eddie Bruce, who joined us for a webinar called Building Relationships with Parents. So I could point Sean in the direction of that particular conversation on the Player Development Project website. And that's some excellent content to check out. Dan, any final thoughts from you on this one?
Yeah, I think perhaps at grassroots level, you might want to look at, your welfare officer. So sometimes it could be just coach to parent, and that isn't always the best because there might be personality problems, or, he perceives the coach in a certain way. So rather than, you don't want to gang up on the parents, but if there's one parent that might be leading all of this, it might be best to have another member of staff with you, have that welfare chat. And it might be a one-to-one rather than you have to affect all 15, 20 parents. It might just be the one that's sort of causing problems, and maybe just to sit down and a chat with him might iron it out and make Matchday a nicer place, I guess.
Absolutely. And hopefully, there's a few thoughts there to help Sean over in the States with that one. We wish him the best with his coaching. Dan, thanks again for your time today, and we'll look forward to another PDP Q&A very soon.